Hey, welcome back to Your Checkup. We are the patient education podcast where we bring conversations from the doctor's office to your ears. On this podcast, we try to bring medicine closer to its patients. I'm Ed Dulesky, a family medicine resident in the Philadelphia area.
And I'm Nicole Rufo. I'm a nurse.
And we are so excited that you were able to be here again with us today. So we're still doing the recovery thing with our intern.
Yeah, I wonder if the mics picked up his whine in the background.
I don't know if they did. These are pretty good mics. So he remains extremely energetic and he's doing really great, but we're really trying to limit his activity as the prescribed recovery, which is very long.
Very long, 8 weeks.
Yeah. And he hears that we're recording and he's not necessarily a part of this right now.
Yeah. He's on FMLA, so he's not allowed to work and he keeps trying to come to work.
He's still got that dog in him. He really wants to.
I don't know why now he's talking. He was like in there most of the day and was fine.
I know. Well, we did move where his crate was to sit where we usually sit, but now we happen to be sitting over here where we usually do the episode.
He should love it though. Like the kid is living in the lap of luxury. He has a luxury apartment. He has this huge crate, a new memory foam mattress.
He gets a new toy to keep him occupied every other day.
Yeah, the delivery guy brings a new toy, a new what do they call them? Like, there's like a word that they call them. Now I sound dumb. Like stimulating dog toys, or like to make them like he has like his sniff pads and his lick mats and all that stuff to like make him burn energy while he's in his little apartment. And he has a nice cozy blanket over it, so it's like a little den. It's quite nice.
It is.
He should stop complaining.
I think he'll settle in. I think just as we got started here, he really wanted to be a part of the episode, and he is just from 15 feet away.
Yeah.
All right. And what are you drinking over there?
I have a cream soda Olipop. And
yeah,
so
it
do
seems
you.
like we've almost defected from Poppy. Oops.
I know. Oh my gosh, I have to tell you something.
What?
I wasn't going to tell you, but I think you're going to notice because I put it on the company card and I went to Acme.
Yeah.
Because, okay, well, I went to Whole Foods to get our sweet treat for tonight because we really like these like brown butter cookie dough things that they sell, and then we just make the cookies at home. And they were out, and then I was going to get poppies, but the poppies the line for Whole Foods was like around the whole store. So then I just went across the street to Acme, grabbed my 2 poppies, and then I was paying, and the total was like 4 something or whatever, 5 something.
Yeah.
And then I went to pay and I tapped my thing, but apparently I hit a number on the like, would you like to make a donation? So I paid $10 for 2 Olipops.
Oh my God.
On the company card.
Oh, what did we make a donation to?
You better enjoy it. I don't even know what we made a donation to.
Probably ending hunger. That's usually the one that comes up at Acme.
Oh yeah.
It's a noble cause. Maybe we can do it as a tax write-off.
Yeah, I was thinking of how I was going to explain this when in like a week from now you were looking at our credit card statement. You're like, when did you randomly spend $10 on a Sunday?
No, do not make this seem like I am the like arbiter of the credit card.
He's drinking his crate water.
Oh, that's great. See, he's calming down. I mean, in the last 2 minutes, he's moaned once, and now he's occupied. So this is great.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to enjoy the heck out of this $6 Olipop.
You should. Maybe like 5 something.
5 and change.
Yeah. It's a tax write-off.
Yeah, we'll make it.
Well, it is because now like we're drinking them while we're recording the podcast.
All right. Well, we don't have like
no money for.
Well, speaking of that, 'cause it's reminding me that we should shout out one of our loyal listeners who's very active on our fan mail. Your brother.
He is. I know. He was hanging out with our cousin Chris on Friday, like he does every Friday night. And every once in a while, they like randomly call me late on a Friday. So they called us on Friday night. And then they got talking about the podcast. And my cousin Chris might have the attention span of a goldfish. So he said that he doesn't like to listen to things like podcasts and things like that. And then my brother was like, oh, well, I listen every week. And then like I told him something about Ollie and he's like, oh yeah, well, the only reason I know that is because I listen to your podcast.
And, you know, we're bringing up your brother because he always leaves such vivid, detailed fan mail.
He does.
He's actually the most active person on fan mail. With the only reason, no, generally for the public who listens, please send us fan mail. We can't tell who it is, but we just happen to know the last 4 of his phone number and where he lives. And he's very proactive.
That he is. He has left us some requests.
I guess he has left us a couple of requests.
Yeah. And when we were at Nana's for her birthday, they talked about a couple of requests.
Oh, that's so true. Yep.
Which we've not fulfilled yet. So
we haven't fulfilled yet because today we're going to be wrapping up our recent run here that we've had on this like obesity medicine type series. But before we get diving in there.
You know what else?
What's that?
I was thinking, so we were at, last night we were at Eddie's sister's future in-laws house.
Mm-hmm. It's a great way to describe it.
It's for both sides of the families to meet. And so all of us were meeting like each side for the first time. So we were like talking with all of Brett's family and getting to know everyone. Do you know we didn't mention the podcast one time?
No, not one time.
Which I guess like maybe that's fine. We had other things to talk about.
We had plenty of other things.
And then like, you start with the bare minimum. Like, what do you do for work?
Right.
Where do you live?
Well, I think it's a pretty cool thing that we're up to. And like, I don't want to be like, hey, my name's Eddie. I do a podcast. But we should be proud of it.
We should have brought a flyer and put it in Amanda and Marty's mailbox.
That we should have. We should have brought our flyers. we should bring our flyers everywhere we go. I guess I wanted to address one piece of fan mail that we also got where one of our loyal listeners mentioned that what happens in our last episode, we talked about calorie breakdowns of meals and that you can eat more calories earlier in the day and maybe it would have more of a benefit to weight loss. Something like 700 calories for breakfast, 500 calories for lunch, and 200 for dinner. And we got a piece of fan mail that says, well, what do you do if you eat 200 calories while you're making dinner? I don't have a great answer.
Yeah, you do this a lot.
Do what?
Like easily consume 200 calories, like while I'm making dinner or something.
Oh, yeah. Well, like we said, many times over and over again, is that any diet or eating plan has to be sustainable. And so if you're not going to commit to 200 calories at dinner, that's not the thing for you.
Yeah.
So that's what we'll say about that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this was a nice warm-up. How do you feel about getting started?
Wait, did we talk about my boom arm?
Oh, my God, again.
We're recording the first episode with my new boom arm.
We are coming to you nearly live with the first episode where Nicole has a boom arm. Her neck is better.
Nicole.
She's sitting. What's that?
You called me Nicole.
Where Nikki has a boom arm and she's sitting, her back is on the chair. She's able to relax. Her blankets.
My posture is erect.
Her posture is perfect. And this is great. We finally got the boom arm. It's in tow. That's why we're so excited to do this today. Wow. How do you feel about it?
No, it's nice. It feels good. I see why people do this. I could sit here all day and talk. We can record 4 episodes tonight.
There we go. I love that energy. But while we're talking about recording an episode, why don't we give the people what they came here for?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Which I'm not sure. Maybe they like our banter in the beginning, but some people might think that you can't see us, but we got a little sigh because our intern really wants to contribute.
He does. He's like, oh.
He'll be okay.
Didn't that sound just like him?
It really did sound just like him. All right. Let's start hacking away. So, What are we talking about today, Nick?
Today we're talking about weight loss medications.
We are.
Mm-hmm.
And some other ways.
Hot topic.
It's a very hot topic. You can think of them as treatments for obesity, if you will. We've done this long run of episodes. It's like 6 or 7 now, probably the most comprehensive coverage we've done of any topic so far. And we'll consider this the last episode for a little while on this topic, just so it doesn't get stale. But weight loss medicines are in the zeitgeist. They're everywhere. And I guess we should probably think about getting started.
Let's do it.
So all the while we've been talking about on our several other episodes are managing obesity and maintaining a healthy weight using a combination of diet, exercise, and other lifestyle changes. And whenever we think about using medicines, they really should come with the mindset that you were also doing those things.
Mm-hmm. All right, where should we?
So I guess a couple high points before we really get into the nitty gritty about some of these medicines is that a lot of them can be expensive. They can be tricky to get. Long-term safety data are emerging. They've been out for a while, longer than people think, but we're still learning things about them. And oftentimes supply is an issue. So I just wanted to put those couple things out as a almost caution to the wind tale. But as we dive in here, Nick, why don't you tell us what the clinical scenario is for a person who may qualify for a medicine for obesity?
So these medicines are recommended for people who have not been able to lose weight with just traditional diet and exercise and have a BMI of 30 or higher. Or if you have other medical problems and your BMI is about 27 to 30.
Yeah. So it's something that you can consider talking to your own doctor about. So I guess one thing we've talked about is that like BMI may not be the perfect way to capture someone's fat percentage in their body.
But that's what's used.
But it's what we got. So that's what we're going to use. I think I've actually seen it more recently where I've seen some people who have the 27 to 29 and have a complication related to obesity who qualify for this. So it does happen. And it happens quite a bit.
Good for them.
So something that I really want to get at today is that we are going to be talking about the GLP medicines the most today. And I'll say that the reason that we're doing that is because they have become the first line recommendation for the treatment of obesity. And all that to say is a hot button issue because I think there's a lot of medical misinformation out there. And I also feel like it can be challenging for research to keep up with the speed of social media. And so here we are kind of like towing the line here between social media and
the social media doctors.
Medical information, which I don't think we are by any means.
No, I'm talking about like people who got their medical degree on Google.
Yeah. So as we're starting to think about the GLP medications, or it stands for glucagon-like peptide 1, this lives in a family of medicines like liraglutide, semaglutide, or semaglutide. There are a bunch of other brand names as well, like Wegovy or Ozempic. But why don't you tell us, like, where did these medicines initially come from and like how did we get here?
They were initially used to treat diabetes, which I think probably is like I feel like people know that like was used for diabetes and then was found to have weight loss effects and then is now like approved and marketed as a weight loss drug.
Yeah. And like certain types of them live in the diabetes bucket and some of them live in the weight loss bucket. Because I think in the beginning of this rush, it was like a gold rush. There was like not enough for the people who had diabetes because once that indication came out for the use of the medication for BMI above 30, a lot of people qualified for this medicine.
Is it just a BMI of 30?
Yeah.
Or is that also insurance dependent?
So
from what you've seen?
Well, it's like just a BMI of 30 to be considered, but it's the availability. That's the issue. Like many people easily qualify, but then whether the insurance actually pays for it.
Yeah, no, that's what I mean. Like,
well, and I also think you have to make a pretty convincing argument too. Like, yes, people with a BMI over 30 should qualify for this medicine, but oftentimes like they just price it out. Like they'll say they cover it, quote unquote, but then it'll be $500 a month. And so later in the episode, we're going to touch on less expensive options that do exist, but these are one of the early pitfalls with these medicines. So like Nick said, these medicines initially were used to treat diabetes, and then in the trials were found to have side effects of weight loss. So then other trials were made to actually figure out like how much weight can people lose on these medicines and are they safe?
Do you want to give a little like one-liner about how the GLPs work? Like
totally
high level.
Yeah.
What they do.
So what they do is threefold, and it's evolving as we understand it. But from my understanding, it works in these three ways. It increases the amount of insulin that the body uses during meal times. It also slows down your GI tract. So it slows down how much food moves from your stomach to the other parts of your intestine, like the next part, the duodenum. Mm-hmm. And it makes you feel fuller longer. What it also does is it changes the ratio of hunger to metabolism, or appetite to metabolism ratio, that we talked about on our episode about the metabolic set point, mm-hmm. and changes how your body responds to hunger. So in the past, we said every 2 pounds you lose, your metabolism slows down 25 calories. But this gets at the every 2 pounds you lose, your hunger goes up 95 calories. Mm-hmm. The GLP medicines may cut that in half even.
Oh, wow, that's a lot.
Yeah. So in those 3 ways.
Gorgeous. All right, we know what they are, how they work, other than being a magic injection that just makes you lose weight. So right. That's what it's doing in our body. Now, should we talk about the side effects? Or the most common ones?
So there are multiple side effects. And the first side effect that I usually talk about is nausea. And the nausea happens when a certain amount of food goes into the stomach and it expands the stomach. And if the stomach is moving more slowly to have food transit from the stomach to the small intestine, that expansion can cause nausea. So the tip is to, when you start taking the medicine, to cut your portion size of food in half so that you don't experience the nausea as much.
That's a good tip.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
So the other side effects are either constipation or diarrhea. I think constipation is diarrhea. I think the constipation is way more common, and I've seen some strategies actually employ using a bowel regimen. So like using something that makes your poop softer and come out more easily, and like, spark up your bowel a little bit ahead of using these medicines. One of the other side effects is actually something called pancreatitis, which is an inflammation of your pancreas. Sometimes people will actually think twice about prescribing these in patients who have had pancreatitis. I mean, don't come after us for like exploring the idea of maybe using these in people who have had pancreatitis in very specific situations, but it's certainly something that you talk with your own doctor about. And there have been some evidence in rat models of something called medullary thyroid cancer, which is a very rare type of thyroid cancer, and is throwing caution into the evaluation of whether someone should actually take this medicine or not. And of course, over time, we're learning that there are more side effects. One major side effect kind of gets at the fact that of how the medicine works. If you go too far on the end of the medicine working too much, something called gastroparesis, that's where your stomach actually stops moving food forward. Is kind of gets at the fact of like how the medicine actually works. And if it works too much, your stomach can stop moving food forward, which is just a bad thing. Yeah, that's rough.
Yeah.
That's why these are so powerful, but need to be monitored all the time. Off the top of my head, I do not know the rates of how that how often that happens, but it's something that has been described.
Yeah.
And so now we've talked about generally how these medicines work. We've talked about some general side effects, understanding that we're recording this on Sunday, September 8th, 2024, and we're learning things every day about medicine. But why don't you tell us generally how these medicines are delivered?
Generally, it's an injection done right under your skin. It's called a subcutaneous injection, and it's done with a very, very small, thin needle. And you would put it, so if you kind of grab like the back of your arm, that skin, you would like pull that up and inject there, or like your stomach, or do the same thing on your thigh. So it's not going into your muscle like if you get like a vaccine or a flu shot and it really goes deep and it hurts really bad. The subcutaneous injections are typically a little less painful.
And do you see the needle?
No. So, well, if you get a pen, no, you don't see the needle.
I think they usually come in pens, don't they?
Yeah, but sometimes you can just it depends how you get it and like what pharmacy that you get it from. I've seen some people like get the vial and like the insulin needle type thing where you can see it.
Oh.
But I don't think that's very often. I think it is sometimes, or not sometimes. I think it is most often in a pen that you just dial up. It has a dial. It'll say whatever dose that's on it, and then you just dial it up, and then you'll get a separate needle. So it's a one-time use. You screw it on, do the injection with the pen, and then when you're done, that needle comes off and you put it in your sharps container.
Yeah. And there's usually like a lot of videos on a lot of different locations, like probably ones on YouTube or ones from the company themselves that instruct you how to use it, or you can go to a local pharmacist and who might be able to explain to you as well about how to use the medicine. That was great. Thank you so much. So liraglutide was one of the first medications that was used and for this purpose, one of the GLP medicines. And that was actually a daily injection. And so in the ever evolving.
Oh, yeah. We didn't say that. Now they're typically just once weekly.
But now they're typically once weekly. So we're talking about the semaglutide-based ones, so like Wegovy and Ozempic, and their later cousin, tirzepatide, which is also known by brand names Zepbound and Mounjaro. So like we were talking about earlier, like Mounjaro lives in the diabetes bucket where Zepbound lives in the weight loss bucket, essentially. These days, from when I was doing some listening earlier for some lecture material, they were suggesting that liraglutide actually was going generic in June. And so
like this past June or
like this past
25?
No, I think this past June. So that's something that's worthwhile for us to look up.
Yeah.
That would change the cost a lot. Speaking of cost, I was kind of thinking about this before we were going to get started. That's a huge issue with these medicines, that they're thousands of dollars.
Yeah. Yeah, they are.
But I also found myself thinking about the first Apple Watch. Also very expensive. Or the first like smartphone. Very expensive. But as things go on and like the way the markets work, they should get less expensive over time.
Yeah.
You think?
I think it's also a little bit of a supply and demand thing.
Yeah.
Like everyone wants it, so they're just going to charge whatever because the big pharma can.
That's fair. So let's explore how effective the GLP medicines are.
If there are any unloyal listeners who don't listen every week, you won't know that Eddie's doing a board certification in obesity medicine. So a lot of the information from all of these obesity episodes are from those lectures.
It's been very helpful overall. Anyway, so it turns out that liraglutide, albeit less popular these days, probably gets I think these studies were done well over a year follow-up. These people got like 10 to 15% weight loss. But the more popular of these medicines are in the semaglutide and tirzepatide components, being like in the Wegovy or Ozempic, Zepbound or Mounjaro. And in the semaglutide ones, there was a whopping 15% weight loss at follow-up, which was well over a year. So just sit with that for a second.
Sit with it.
Well, because even think about that. Like whenever we're talking about, like we set weight loss goals in a couple episodes ago, and we said the first goal was to stop gaining weight. What was the second goal?
The second goal was to lose about 5% of your body weight.
And if you wanted to have an amazing effect on how obesity was affecting your health as a whole, you were looking at 15%.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what this medicine was doing.
And then the tirzepatide had a weight loss of more than that, about 21%.
Yeah. So that was even the newest cousin. It is a very strong, very powerful medicine.
Yeah.
But I mean, when you're getting this much of an effect, you absolutely need to follow up with your doctor when they prescribe it to you because they're so powerful, especially the tirzepatide-based medicines. And like anything, like if you're going to start treating blood pressure, you have follow-up appointments to make sure that everything is safe and healthy. And you need to do the same with these medicines.
Mm-hmm.
what I actually was just recently learning is that if you're going to start any weight loss medicine, you really should follow up at around 3 months and see if you got 5% weight loss. If you didn't get a 5% weight loss, then you kind of jump ship.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And you move on to the next thing because it's just not working. Yeah. Also, by the way, these medicines don't work for everyone, which might come as a shock.
Yeah, it does. Is there, I don't know if you know this, like a statistic of people it doesn't work for, like numbers wise, or no? There may be one out there, but
there may be one out there.
It also could like change 2 weeks from now, so it might be
that's also
irrelevant.
True too. Yeah, we say like tirzepatide, for example, like an average of 21%, but there were people who lost more and people who lost less. So that's definitely something to keep in mind as well. So before we kind of get into our like thoughts and feelings about these medicines, I'll say that the current state of the market and the medical recommendation is that these medicines are the first line for weight loss medication, but there's also emerging evidence that they are protective of the heart, and maybe even earlier, like newer evidence coming out that they may be protective of the kidney as well, which is all just incredible stuff. And that it really just adds to the fact that there's going to be more of a supply issue, but at some point
they're like using the same meds for diabetes and like the diabetics are fine.
That's also true. Well, they were also talking about like,
but then I don't know if there's like, are there like considerations for like dosing and like, is the dose for weight loss different than the dose for diabetes and all that stuff?
Well, you get to the maintenance phase. I mean, what we've talked a lot about on our episodes are weight loss, but there is
I guess we also didn't really talk about how you go up for X amount of weeks. And then is there a standard of how much you should go up or like for how many weeks you should go up before you hit maintenance? Or is it based on like each person? And
I think a lot of strategies go after the lowest effective dose to get to a clinical goal. So something that we've talked about here is that like one clinical goal could be your BMI of 30. And we talked about all those life-changing risks going away or becoming reduced at 30. So if you're on a low dose and you're still losing weight, you probably can afford to stay there. But if you stop losing weight and you're not at your goal, then you can go up.
Okay, so it's not a standard. This week you go up, it's kind of like you're losing weight, and then when you plateau a little bit, increase your dose. Yeah,
that's what I was learning like as soon as even today. And it's a part of a practice that I've seen. Some people, because there are other different types of medicines where you go up to the highest tolerated dose. I don't think this is one of those. I think you try to do the lowest dose that you can and get the most out of it. Yeah.
Because then I guess maybe like in the future, if you have to go higher, you have that wiggle room.
Yep. If you have the wiggle room, something they were also employing on these lectures was that you can stack different types of medicines too. Like you may go after the GLP pathway for weight loss, but some other medicines, just to name drop them here, we're not going to talk about these a lot today, but phentermine, topiramate, naltrexone, bupropion, orlistat, or just phentermine by itself are older. They have been used for weight loss in the past and are still reasonable in the certain situations, but like you may stack one of those on top. And they were even talking about a strategy where someone was on a GLP, had a tremendous amount of weight loss, but then started having cravings. And they used one of those medicines to stack on top to keep getting to the desired effect.
Well, I wanted to quickly talk about what happens when you stop taking them. Really just to touch on it because I know people are going to ask, and we've had this conversation with another loyal listener.
Yes.
My mom. And her go-to every time we're talking about this, she's like, but when you stop taking it, you just gain the weight back.
That's fair. So I'll follow up with a couple rhetorical questions that I hope you'll answer.
Which I feel... Okay. Well, what are your questions? I have some things to say about it.
I would love to hear what you have to say. But for those people wondering what would happen if you had high blood pressure and stopped taking your blood pressure medicine?
Yeah. Oh my God, this was where I was going to go too.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Get out of my head. So what were you going to say?
Well, okay, I was going to say that and kind of like, all roads lead back to hypertension. We always refer to blood pressure because it's like the easiest thing to relate something to. Yeah, so if you had high blood pressure and you stop taking your medicine, your blood pressure is going to go up. If you're taking these weight loss medications and you just stop taking it, you are going to lose weight.
Mm-hmm.
Initially, probably because one, like physically what was happening in your body is not happening anymore. But then like, you also have to do the lifestyle changes.
Yeah.
And it's not just, this is not a magic cure-all. Like you have to do the lifestyle changes for this to be sustainable, because I don't think most people, I guess it's too early to tell, but I don't think most people are on a maintenance dose forever.
It's a good question.
Probably too soon to tell.
They were even saying it's too soon to tell.
But then also relating it to blood pressure, you're just going to be more successful if you're not just taking a pill and like, let me not exercise and let me have a really poor diet and just hope that this pill fixes everything.
Exactly.
So there is that consideration. But if you are changing the way that you eat, you're changing how active you are in your daily life, how much you're exercising. When you stop taking the medication, yeah, you like might gain a little weight back, but you're probably going to be fine.
Yeah. And to that end, I think there are active conversations and active areas of study looking at, if you look at obesity as a chronic disease, why would you stop treating the chronic disease?
Mm-hmm.
And whether you do further skipped doses, like is once a month dosing something that can be done, or is like super low dose something that can be done? I think there's a lot of conversation and a lot of room for developing practices that I think are still being worked out.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think you're absolutely right. And yeah, when you stop taking the medicine, I think a lot of people, and I've even read studies where they like take people and they double blind them and they flip them and they give them the medicine and then they give them like a dummy pen. And they looked at it and like people do gain the weight back, but that's the disease process.
Yeah.
That's a great point. What other thoughts or questions, or like, as we kind of like exit the information delivering part of our episode and kind of get into the like what we're thinking about here? I don't know, just like,
I don't think I have any more thoughts.
Okay.
Do you? I feel like this was a good round out on our obesity series.
Yeah, I mean,
which we can always do more because we can do whatever we want. It's our podcast.
Yeah, and I'm going to be learning a lot more, and we'll be
so we actually
putting it away.
We actually might have a few episodes sprinkled in here.
Yeah. But I mean, notice that like 5 or 6 of the, I don't know, 6 or 7 episodes that we've done were about everything other than medicine related to this topic, because that's how this is taken care of most times. But it's a tricky illness, tricky disease to manage, and sometimes you need medicines to take care of it. And like we said in the beginning, we were taking most of the time this episode to talk about the GLP medicines, all of those that are really like in the popular media right now. But I did briefly name drop those other medicines, which are also available on the market. They usually offer somewhere between like a 5 and maybe 10% weight loss, depending on the medicine, but it has to be in the right circumstance. Maybe we can do an episode at some point later on about those, but for all intents and purposes, we really wanted to focus on the GLPs today.
Cool. Well, I think it's time for me to make dinner and you can watch football with Ollie.
That's so great. All right.
I'll bring the lick pad.
Something else.
I put I added chicken broth to his lick pads.
Oh, I can't wait to see how that goes. Did you do that yet? Or I know it's like you're working on it now, but
yeah, I did it earlier today.
Wow.
I made 2, so they should be good.
Yeah, this is turning out to be an extra long episode. I mean, what we may do in the future, we're drinking these Ollie Pops. We may just have a dirty martini and do an episode and then put it behind
Eddie's perfected my perfect dirty martini.
Well, that's so sweet of you to say. But then we'll put it behind a paywall because we'll have a beverage in us and who knows what we'll say. So that may be the Patreon.
I know.
Content.
Eddie wouldn't let me say my hot take at the beginning of this episode
You're
because
going to
he
get us
thought
canceled.
we were going to get canceled.
So no, you have to behave. All right. So we really appreciate that you were able to come back for another episode of Your Checkup. Please, keep listening to us. We really appreciate that people do tune in, and we're blessed that this is this way, and we're happy to keep doing it. Share it with a friend, share it with a family member. Like we were saying, this will conclude our most recent run of episodes on nutrition and weight management, and you can look forward to what probably will be a fun little pediatric episode next week.
Oh yeah, this is going to be a Nikki produced episode, so it's going to be great.
Yeah, so this is going to be one of the best episodes that we've ever had, and we can't wait for it. So tune in next week for that content, and please check us out on Instagram. You can email us. It's all over our social media as well. And I hope that today you learned something for yourself, a loved one, or
a neighbor.
And please share our content wherever you can with your neighbors. And most importantly, stay healthy, my friends. Until next time, I'm Ed Dulesky.
I'm Nicola Rufo.
Thank you and goodbye.
Bye.
This information may provide a brief overview of diagnosis, treatment, and medications. It's not exhaustive and is a tool to help you understand potential options about your health. It doesn't cover all details about conditions, treatments, or medications for a specific person. This is not medical advice or an attempt to substitute medical advice. You should contact a healthcare provider for personalized guidance based on your unique circumstances. We explicitly disclaim any liability relating to the information given or its use. This content doesn't endorse any treatments or medications for a specific patient. Always talk to your healthcare provider for a complete information tailored to you. In short, I'm not your doctor.
I am not your nurse.
And make sure you go get your own checkup with your own personal doctor.